What's going on, guys? It's the Draft Nerd, and today we're going to be reacting to Chris Trapazzo's CBS Mock Draft. Now, this came out, I believe, 2 days ago, yes, September 18th. So this looks like it's going to be a post Bryce Young benching, so we'll see if the Panthers take a quarterback here. But without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, coming in at number 1, we do have the Panthers taking Carson Beck, the quarterback out of Georgia. Now, do I think there's a quarterback worth taking with the first overall pick? Not necessarily. I think if any quarterback as of right now is worth taking with the first overall pick, I do think it's Carson Beck. But I'm more in the camp of waiting a year for the Panthers to draft a quarterback. You know, get a bridge quarterback, either go with Andy Dalton next year or, get some type of bridge quarterback. Draft a best player available like a Will Johnson, a Mason Graham, a Nick Scourton, someone like that, and really build up that Panthers team before bringing in a quarterback. And then that way you can also, have a chance at Arch Manning. I think that's what I would do, but like I said, if they're going to take a quarterback in this draft, I think Carson Beck's the safest option. Moving on to number 2, we got the New York Giants taking Miller Moss. Now, Miller Moss has been playing, solid, but has he necessarily, played his way into even the first round? I don't even think so, let alone a top 2 pick. I'm not mad at the Giants taking a quarterback. They obviously need one with how Daniel Jones has been playing, but I'd much rather have a Shedeur Sanders, a Jalen Milroe, even a Cam Ward, a Quinn Ewers. Like, there's a few people I would take over Miller Moss, but I'm not mad at the quarterback pick for the Giants. Moving on to number 3, we got the Denver Broncos taking Travis Hunter, and I'm a fan of this pick. It looks like they have him playing cornerback. I really do think that Travis Hunter is going to want to play receiver in the NFL just because receivers get paid more. And either position he chooses, I think he's going to be really good at. If he plays cornerback here, then let's see what they say. Actually, Hunter has been absolutely sensational on both sides of the ball to begin the 2024 college season. Cornerback and receiver, Hunter can do it all. He's okay. So they don't really say what the Broncos are going to use him as. And, if he does play cornerback, pairing him with Pat Surtain, that's a really, really good cornerback duo. Or you could go receiver and, he's kind of that opposite of Courtland Sutton, who's more that bigger, big bodied, target. Travis Hunter's more of that playmaker. I like it on both sides. So regardless, I like that pick. Moving on to number 4, we got Michael Williams going to the Patriots. And, Michael Williams hasn't played since week 1 this season. I believe he's battling a foot injury or leg injury, and he's already raw. So having him not develop this season is kind of concerning for me. I think there's much more polished edge rushers like a Nick Scourton, a James Pierce even, I think's maybe got a higher ceiling than Michael Williams. And then, even an Abdul Carter I wouldn't be mad at either. And then I also wouldn't really go edge rusher here to begin with. I mean, the Patriots need offensive line help and receiver help, so I would much rather have a Will Campbell here or even a Luther Bird and Tetairoa McMillan. Moving on to number 5, we got the Tennessee Titans taking Nick Scourton, and I like this a lot. I did this in my mock draft yesterday. The Titans don't really have any pass rush help on the edge. The interior with T'Vondre Sweat and Simmons, that's a good interior, but they don't really have anyone threatening the edge, and I think Nick Scourton could do just that. Moving on to number 6, we got the Commanders taking Will Johnson, and the Commanders need help in that secondary desperately. Emmanuel Forbes is looking like he's going to be a bust, and besides that, Benjamin St-Juste is solid. He's not great. They need that alpha cornerback, and Will Johnson is exactly that. I like that pick a lot. Will Johnson is my best player in this draft. Moving on to number 7, we got the Raiders taking Cam Ward, and I like this pick a lot. If the Raiders are going to be looking for a quarterback, I think they're going to want to take a home run swing because Gardner Minshew is he's similar to a Carson Beck and Shedeur Sanders. Cam Ward's that home run threat where he has a very low floor, but he also has a very high ceiling. And so if you hit on Cam Ward and he reaches his potential, he could be a top 10 quarterback in this league one day. So I'm not mad at it at all. Moving on to number 8, we got the Rams taking Jonas Savaiinaea. And I like the offensive line pick here. Jonas Savaiinaea, however you say it. He wouldn't be the pick here. I would much rather have a more solidified offensive tackle like a Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks, Ariante Urzuri. Because I think Jonas Savaiinaea is a bit of a tweener. I think he's a little bit more suited to be a guard in the NFL, and I think the Rams desperately need a tackle. Moving on to number 9, we got the Colts taking Luther Burden. And I don't know. I like Luther Burden a lot, but to the Colts is a little bit of a weird pick. They just paid Michael Pittman. Josh Downs, although he hasn't played yet this season, is a really good slot option going into a second year. And then they just got A.D. Mitchell, who I think is going to be a really good number 2 option for the Colts. So I don't really see how Luther Burden fits in here. I mean, I guess he could replace Josh Downs, but then that's kind of a wasted pick that the Colts, used to. So I don't know. I would much rather, if they do want to take a weapon, maybe get a Colston Loveland. Although at pick number 9, that's a little bit rich. You could also go with secondary. There's a Benjamin Morrison still on the board. He would be a big help. And even a Takario Davis and Siobhan Ravel. I think those are better fits than Luther Burden. Although I do really like Luther Burden. Moving on to number 10, we got the Jaguars taking Kelvin Banks. And yeah, I like Kelvin Banks. I think he's arguably the best tackle in this class. And the Jaguars do have to kind of build up that offensive line. So I'm not mad at that pick. Moving on to number 11, we got the Cardinals taking James Pierce Jr. And for the Cardinals, I always say just take best player available on the defense. And, James Pierce has an incredible ceiling. He's, one of the most athletic edge rushers I've seen in a while. Is he the most technically sound edge rusher? Does he have the most pass rush moves in his, arsenal? Not necessarily, not right now. But he's just such a, a moldable piece of clay that, you can make him whatever you want. So I think James Pierce is a good pick here. Moving on to number 12, we got the Bears taking Will Campbell, and I like this pick a lot. We've seen that Bears offensive line needs help. The Texans defensive line absolutely obliterated that O-line for the Bears, and you want to be able to protect your prized possession in Caleb Williams, and getting arguably one of the best offensive tackles in this draft is an unbelievable pick in my opinion. Moving on to number 13, we got the Browns taking Tetairoa McMillan, and yeah, I'm not mad at it. I mean, Amari Cooper's getting up there in age. You just traded for Jerry Jeudy. Elijah Moore has his issues. Is it the most pressing need? No. Is it maybe the best player available? Probably. But I would have looked to go maybe edge rusher, get a, maybe an Abdul Carter, someone like that, because, you always want pass rush help on the opposite side of Myles Garrett. And Zadarius Smith is, he's getting up there in age. But regardless, I'm not mad at the Tetairoa McMillan pick. Moving on to 14, we got the Vikings taking Malachi Starks, and I also did this in my mock draft yesterday. You could go cornerback here. Benjamin Morrison's still on the board, and he wasn't in my mock draft yesterday, or else I probably would have went with cornerback there. But Malachi Starks is an unbelievable talent at safety, and this draft class has a lot of really good safety talent, but Malachi Starks is by far the best. And Harrison Smith is getting up there in age. Get Malachi Starks in there to maybe learn behind Smith for a year. I think that would do wonders for him and his development. Moving on to number 15, we got the Steelers taking Shedeur Sanders. So we got a lot of quarterbacks going in this first round, which I don't necessarily know is a good thing with how this quarterback class is turning out. But, the Steelers might need a quarterback. They got two, borderline starters in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Now, Justin Fields has been playing very good so far, but is he the long-term future? Maybe, maybe not. Getting Shedeur Sanders in there, he's a smart quarterback. He throws the ball where he needs to throw the ball. He just might not have that athletic upside as some of these other quarterbacks. Moving on to 16, we got the Bucks taking Deone Walker, the defensive tackle out of Kentucky. And despite his size at 6'6", 345, he's not necessarily a run stopper. He's more of a pass rusher at that defensive tackle position. And you already got guys like Vita Vea and Kalaja Kancey on that interior of the defensive line. Now, I know Vita Vea is not, the youngest guy ever. He is getting up there in age, but I still think there's more pressing needs on the edge rather than, on the interior of that defensive line. Moving on to 17, we got the Seahawks taking Abdul Carter. And I like that pick. Boye Mafe having a breakout season, but who's on the opposite side of him? No one's special. So, I'm not mad at that. Abdul Carter is a developmental edge rusher, and I think he would have time to develop in Seattle. So I like that pick. Moving on to the 18th pick, the Dolphins take Mason Graham. I did not realize that Mason Graham was still on the board. Taking Deone Walker over Mason Graham is insane in my opinion. But yeah, whichever team is sitting here at 18 and Mason Graham's still on the board is going to be a good pick. Mason Graham's arguably the best player in the draft, so getting him at 18 is a steal no matter what. Moving on to 19, we got the Chargers taking Princely Umamulin. And Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack are getting up there in age. They're not going to be able to play forever. You got Tui Pelotu, waiting in the wing, but why not get another really young, good edge rusher in Princely Umamulan? I'm not mad at that. I would also not be mad at maybe getting a running back like a Ashton Jeanty, a Quinshon Judkins, or even getting a tight end and a Colston Loveland. But Princely Umamulan, I'm a big fan of him. I'm not going to be mad at that pick. Moving on to 20, we had the Saints taking Emeka Egbuka. And I don't know. I like Emeka Egbuka, but he's somewhat similar to Chris Olave's role. I'm a bigger fan of having the Saints take a Tetairoa McMillan if he falls. He has been taken in this mock draft, so Emeka Egbuka, I just think him and Chris Olave's roles might clash a little bit. If they're going to take receiver, I would want a bit of a bigger receiver, maybe a Elika Umanor, someone like that, or even try to get someone on that defensive side of the ball as well. I don't know. I'm a little iffy on that pick. Moving on to number 21, we got the Falcons taking Harold Perkins Jr., the linebacker / edge rusher from LSU. The Falcons need pass rush help. Is Harold Perkins going to be able to be a full-time edge rusher? Absolutely not. Not at 6'1", 225. But he can be that linebacker who, goes in on blitzes. And he's also really good in pass coverage. The only thing he needs to, work on is his tackling ability. But I really like Harold Perkins, and getting talent on that Falcons defense is a really good idea, even though they're already stacked on defense. But they are missing a true linebacker. Moving on to 22, we got the Packers taking Benjamin Morrison, the cornerback out of Notre Dame. And he's a borderline top 5 player in the draft for me. The Packers need someone, a solidified cornerback alongside J.R. Alexander. And I think Benjamin Morrison could be the perfect pick if he falls to pick 22. I wouldn't bet money that Benjamin Morrison falls that far. Moving on to 23, we got the Jets taking Quinn Ewers, the quarterback out of Texas. And we don't really know how long Aaron Rodgers plans on playing quarterback for the Jets. He could retire after the season, and if he does, the Jets are kind of screwed. They don't really have an answer at quarterback post Aaron Rodgers, so why not get a quarterback in a Quinn Ewers who is a high upside quarterback? Now, would Aaron Rodgers necessarily like that pick if he plans on playing more than just one season? Probably not, but you got to look towards the future. Aaron Rodgers is definitely not going to play forever. Moving on to 24, we got the Cowboys taking Ashton Jeanty, the running back out of Boise State. And I love the Cowboys taking a running back in the first round. And I'm not one of those guys who say never take a running back in the first round, because you get that 5th-year option. You get him for those first 5 years, which are usually the running back's prime years. I'm just not the biggest fan of paying running backs after that rookie contract. So I like the pick here. I maybe would have rather had a Quinshon Judkins. I just think he fits more of that Cowboys philosophy. And maybe that's just because he's an Ohio State running back, similar to Ezekiel Elliott when he was coming out of Ohio State. But regardless, I think Ashton Jeanty is the best running back in this draft, so I can't be mad at it. Moving on to 25, we got the Bengals taking Derek Harmon, the defensive lineman out of Oregon. Now, I haven't done any tape watching of Derek Harmon. I have heard that he's been, on an absolute tear pressuring the quarterback. I'm pretty sure he's averaging like 5 pressures a game. So, has he played himself into the first round yet? I'm not sure. I haven't watched tape on him yet, but from the little I've seen and heard about him, he has been playing very well for Oregon. Moving on to 26, we got the Ravens taking Isaiah Bond. And they really do need receiving talent. Aside from Zay Flowers, they don't really have much. Rashad Bateman hasn't necessarily lived up to the hype. You don't know if he's going to be back. And besides that, who else do they have? So getting Zay Flowers, a running mate, and Isaiah Bond would be a really good idea. They're both kind of smaller, shifty options, but, in that Ravens offense, I don't think that would be a problem. Moving on to 27, we got the Lions taking Jack Sawyer, the edge rusher out of Ohio State. And he seems like a Lions pick. He hasn't necessarily lived up to the pass rushing hype that he had coming out of high school, but he's just such a solid, edge setter and run defender. And, even if his pass rush ability doesn't necessarily develop, he's going to be an absolutely great run defender, and that's just such a Lions pick. I like that pick a lot. Moving on to 28, we got the Eagles taking Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan. And, Dallas Goedert is getting up there in age. Do I think it's the most pressing need? Maybe not, but the Eagles have so much talent that they can afford to take a somewhat luxury pick. And, Colston Loveland in that offense, I think he would absolutely thrive. And he would probably take over for Dallas Goedert after a season or two. Moving on to 29, we got the Texans taking Jalen Walker, the linebacker out of Georgia. Now, he's a bit of a linebacker, edge rusher, hybrid, similar to an Abdul Carter, and he's also a raw player. If he, reaches his potential this season, I could see him going in the first round. So I'm not mad at that pick at all. I just don't necessarily know if he's worth a first round pick right this second. Moving on to 30, we got the Bills taking TJ Sanders, the defensive tackle out of South Carolina. And they do need someone alongside Ed Oliver. I would probably rather have them taking a secondary player, maybe a cornerback like a Siobhan Revell or a Takario Davis. But I can't be mad at the TJ Sanders pick. He's a good player. Moving on to 31, we got the 49ers taking Siobhan Revell, and he's just a big, long, athletic cornerback, and I think he would fit right into that 49ers defense alongside Charvarius Ward. And then rounding out this NFL mock draft, we got the Chiefs taking Ariante Urzuri, the offensive lineman out of Minnesota. Now, I would assume this would be him replacing Jawan Taylor, who hasn't, necessarily been great for the Chiefs, because I think that the left side is shored up with Kingsley Suamataia. He's been playing really good so far, as in his rookie season. But if Ariante Urzuri falls to 32, I think that would be a really good pick to move him to the right side and take over for Jawan Taylor. So I like that pick a lot as well. And that's going to do it. Let me know what you guys think of this mock draft. Definitely had some interesting picks, but a lot of the picks I really liked and have even made myself. So with that being said, let me know what you think of this video. Give it a like, maybe consider subscribing. And as always, I'm the Draft Nerd, and thanks for watching.